And now we're going to start to add some of the fun stuff, things that are going to make our cookies do cool things, and the things that are going to make our cookies taste really, really good. So first thing I'm going to add, a little bit of baking soda. I want you guys to try to remember how I measured out the sugar, because when we measure out things like baking soda, even though we're using little teaspoons or measuring spoons, same process. So I'm going to scoop it, heap it, and then scrape it using my straight edge. So we have one, scoop it, heap it, scrape it, two. And this baking soda. Anybody know what the baking soda is going to do? Good. Our baking soda is called a leavening agent, so it's going to help to make our cookies rise. Now I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Again, scoop it, heap it, straight edge to scrape it. And what the salt kind of does is, I say the salt marries together all the flavors, so that when we bite into these cookies, we don't just taste the cloves that we're going to add in, or we don't just taste the shortening. We get that really nice home kind of Christmassy flavor that ginger cookies have. So speaking of the flavor, speaking of the cloves, we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves, ground nutmeg, and ground ginger. And again, we are going to scoop it, heap it, and scrape it. And our last little flavor we're going to do is some ground cinnamon. We're going to do 1 teaspoon fresh cinnamon of ground cinnamon. Now it's time to mix this all up again. Time for our final ingredient, a little bit of flour. We're going to need 2 cups of flour, but I'm only going to add 1 cup at a time. And then I'm going to mix it in just until I can't really see any of that white anymore. And the reason I'm going to do that is when you bake, you can over mix your cookies. So if anybody's ever had those cookies where they're really, really good, but they're really tough, chances are that people just kind of added all the ingredients in at once and mixed until everything was combined. And then you just worked the gluten too much that's in the flour, and they get kind of gross. So my scoop, heap, and my scrape. Through the magic of video editing, I have added my second cup of flour, and now I've cleaned off my mix attachments. My wonderful husband who's filming this is probably really hoping I'm going to give him these to lick off. But since we have raw egg in here, can I? Sadly for him, no, because we don't want him to get salmonella. So now I'm going to come back to my handy dandy little rubber scraper, and I'm just going to scrape the sides and the bottom of my bowl just to make sure that I get all of the ingredients in there. And then I'm just going to fly some cookie dough. And now I'm going to get ready to put it onto my cookie sheet. And on my cookie sheet, I just have this Sil Pat. You don't need it to make cookies. I'm not going to lie. I just really like them because I'm lazy, and it makes for super easy cleanup. So all I'm going to do is take a little handful of my dough, and I'm going to roll it around into a ball, and then set it on my cookie sheet. Now, as I'm rolling these into cookie dough balls for you, I want to make sure that they're about the same size. And other than to be fair, so that nobody's complaining about, oh, Mrs. Hahn, his cookie's bigger than mine. Why do I want them all to be about the same size? So basically, what would happen if all my cookies were this size, and then I made one little baby cookie? What would happen if I baked it so this one got done? Good, this one would be super, super raw. And then vice versa, if I baked it so that this one got done, what would happen to this cookie? It'd be a burnt mess. The other thing that I am going to be doing is I'm going to leave space between the cookies. Any guesses why I want to leave space between them? Right, these are going to spread out a little bit, so I don't want them to all join together. If they do join together, not the last thing in the world. They'll still taste delicious. They'll just be kind of funky shapes. So I am notorious for not leaving enough room. So since I'm making these at home and I have the time, I'm just going to do a couple of them, probably just these 6 on the cookie sheet, and just have to do a whole bunch of batches in the oven. Now, my recipe says here that I want to bake these for 5 to 10 minutes. What do you guys think I'm going to set the timer for? If I'd never made these cookies before, and I'd never used this oven, I'd probably only set it for 2.5 minutes. So I want to take the shortest amount of time my recipe says, and then put it in for half that time. Just because sometimes recipes can have typos in them, but the main reason is I might not have followed my recipe correctly. Maybe this recipe wanted me to make my cookies monsters. Maybe they wanted them this big. And if that's how big the cookie is to be in there for 5 to 10 minutes, these would all be super, super burnt. But if I put them in and set my timer and just walk back and check them every now and then, I can always add more time, but I can never ever take time away. Before I put these into the oven, I do have raw cookie dough in my hand, so what do I need to do? You got it. I have to go wash them again. My hands are clean. I need to keep my hands safe, so I want to use my oven mitts. And this is something I never ever thought I'd have to go over in class. Which side should I use to touch the pan when I'm putting something in or out of the oven? How many of you guys say this side? How many of you guys say this side? Those of you guys who said this side, good. If we use this side, it's basically like I just stuck my hand in my apron or I stuck my hand under my t-shirt and used that to grab pans. It's not going to protect you. Always wear both oven mitts because let's say I'm taking these out, they're all fully cooked. If I only have one oven mitt on and this accidentally drops, what's my first reaction going to be? To try to grab it quick with the other hand, and I'm going to end up burning myself. But if we have 2 oven mitts on, we won't end up burning. And then when these go into the oven, we need to make sure the oven door is all the way open. Any guesses why I want it all the way open versus just kind of partially open? Right, our hand could, or our arm could accidentally hit the door, or what's kind of likely to happen, especially on our ovens, they're a little bit older, the oven door might accidentally come up and bang you and kind of trap your wrist in there. So I'm going to put these in the oven, and then I'm going to show you guys how to set the timer for when you use the oven. To set the timer, you're going to press timer, not cook time. Cook time will go up in increments of 5 minutes, and the oven will turn off when it's done. So to set it, press timer, move your arrows, and then just like before, stop pressing buttons. So remember earlier when I asked what is this, and some of you guys had guessed that it was a spatula, and I said nope, it's a rubber scraper, but we'll come back to this. A lot of people call this a spatula. Even my all-time favorite Food Network chef, Alton Brown, calls this a spatula because it kind of is. But the thing is, a lot of people call this a spatula, and they call this a spatula. So let's say we were having a test where you had one question on that test But if you didn't get it right, no more cooking labs for the next 6 weeks. And I said to you, you need to bring me your spatula. You would have a 33% chance of getting this correct. So you can call these things spatulas when you're at home, but just to kind of cut out on confusion in class, none of these are a spatula. This is a rubber scraper. This is a straight edge. And this guy that we haven't talked about yet, you'll actually be using in your first lab, and I'm going to be using to take the cookies off the cookie sheet, but this is called a turner. Now, a true spatula is really similar to your straight edge, but instead of it being completely flat like this, the handle is going to be kind of up at an angle, because a true spatula is used to frost a cake. So, again, straight edge, rubber scraper, turner, we don't have a spatula. So we have 2 types of measuring cups. This one, which you guys have already seen before. Anybody remember what it's called? Good, our dry measuring cup. What are the 3 words we need to remember for how to measure with this? Scoop, heap, and scrape. This is called our liquid measuring cup. They're both used to measure things. This can measure 1 cup, this can measure 1 cup, but they're very different. What are some differences you guys see, other than the color, between our dry measuring cup and our liquid measuring cup? Now, since I'm not in the class and I don't know what order you guys came up with your amazing answers, we're just going to go in this order. But one big difference is that this can only measure 1 cup, because remember, we have to level it off. This one, if you kind of look, it can measure anywhere from 1/4 of a cup up to 1 cup, or what does it even say? I don't know. 50 milliliters all the way up to 250. So this can measure out multiple amounts for us. Now, when we measure, I can't just take this and scoop it into my apple juice container, heap it, and then level it. So what you'll do is set your liquid measuring cup down on a flat surface. I'm going to stand up for this. You're going to slowly pour in your liquid. And I like to do this when I'm already down at eye level. But I'm going to pour it in, and we'll say I need a cup of apple juice because I'm really thirsty after filming this. And I want to make sure that the top of my liquid is at the top of my 1 cup line. Now, I'm bringing myself down to eye level to check on this, because if I'm holding my cup up here, or I bring the cup up to myself, it's going to move around and it won't be an accurate measurement anymore. Some other differences are, this is at 1 cup, but I've got some extra room. And it's kind of like with measuring with our teaspoons or our measuring spoons. This will help to prevent spilling with things. And then our last main difference is that we have a spout here. Spout comes in really handy because if any of you guys are like me, and sometimes I take my milk from my glass in the morning and I pour it into my cereal bowl. Half the milk ends up in my cereal bowl. Half of it slides down the cup and lands on my table. It's because I don't have a spout for it to jump over the edge. A little side trick, if you take a spoon, we'll say this is my cup, my finger's my spoon, and you put your spoon like this and pour that way, you've created a spout to get it over the lip of our cup, and then you won't spill your breakfast milk. Well, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you can remember how to measure out all the things and how to stay safe. You will be getting your cookies just because I'm not here, so don't worry. They're coming to you very shortly. Hey, have a good rest of your day. Bye.